Hello, everyone. I'm Patty Ann Brown, and you are in the strategy room. With no active opposition, Donald Trump easily won the primary in Washington state on Tuesday, edging closer to the 1,237 delegates needed to wrap up the Republican nomination. But as Trump edges closer to securing the nod, his former rivals appear to be looking for bargaining chips to use at the party's national convention in July. John Kasich has instructed his 161 delegates to remain bound to him through the convention, a move also implemented by former Trump opponents Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. So what impact will this have on the convention? Joining us now to weigh in are Democratic strategist Joe Lestingi and Republican strategist Ron Bonjean. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Before suspending their campaigns, Ted Cruz won 568 delegates, Marco Rubio 166, Kasich 161. Ron, they say these delegates are leverage for the convention. What specifically do they want?
Well, look, what they want is they want, for instance, John Kasich would like Donald Trump to run a more positive campaign. I think Ted Cruz would really like to have some influence on the platform and some of the rules that will be put forth in the Rules Committee platform. But I'll tell you this, Donald Trump is likely going to get the nomination. He just won Washington State. He's inches to the 1,237 needed to be the nominee. And it's likely he's going to win on the first ballot and become the Republican nominee and going into the general election. So while they're holding out with these delegates, and I understand why, I think they're leveraged. There's not a lot of leverage here on Donald Trump.
Right.
I mean, he knows he needs to unify the party. That's why he met with Paul Ryan. And there's now rumors swirling that Paul Ryan may be endorsing him within days.
All right.
So we'll have to see what happens there at the convention. But I mean, obviously these candidates are looking to try to make a little trouble and in order to leverage some things for themselves.
I mean, as Ron said, most delegates are bound to support Trump as the party's nominee on the first ballot, but there are other matters in which these delegates can go their own way, and Cruz delegates might actually make up a majority on some important committees at the convention that would determine future rules and the platform. Joe, do you think these candidates will go into the convention wielding some power with bargaining chips?
Well, it's the only bargaining chip they have left, because once the nomination is done and secured for Donald Trump, there's nothing else they can really do. So the only chip they have are these delegates and the rules, and they can get into these committee meetings and they can shake things up. They can placate to their base. They can set the barriers for the next nomination process. They can make themselves within their own groups be kingmakers, or at least appear to be that way. So what's interesting is Kasich's statement on keeping his delegates all the way through. He may actually still believe that there is a possibility for him to become the nominee, and he needs to keep his base together. No one knows quite what's going to happen when we get to Cleveland. I would love to be in Cleveland to see all this go down. It looks like it's locked up for Trump right now, but what if, just what if there was some sort of shakeup? They want those delegates, and they also want them on these committees, because after that convention closes, they're done. There's nothing else left for them this year.
Yeah, and the Wall Street Journal is reporting that, in fact, Texas Senator Ted Cruz's backers are looking for several specific proposals. One would incentivize states to restrict their primaries only to Republican Party members, not allowing independents and Democrats, as some currently do. This is seen as helpful to conservatives like Cruz and could hinder outsider candidates like Trump. Another proposal would, quote, create a conscience exception that delegates could invoke to unbind themselves even on that first ballot. Ron, what do you make of these ideas?
Well, what's clear is that Ted Cruz is lining up for a 2020 run. That's what it looks like to me. And he's having his delegates try to set the playing field in order to create favorable conditions for another run, potentially against Donald Trump, or potentially against Donald Trump for the nomination next time, or anyone else for that matter. And if there wasn't the independent side, and if there wasn't some Democrats voting in some of these primaries, Cruz may have done much better. However, I will say that John Kasich took a number of votes away from Cruz in several states and hurt his chances.
All right. Other proposals that the Cruz camp has would prevent the awarding of delegates from congressional districts that are held by Democrats. They would prohibit lobbyists from being members of the National Republican Committee. Joe, is this a signal that Republicans have not fully unified behind Trump? And what do you make of this whole I can't say that word today, conscience objection?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, right? Because we have this when we go to elect the president, too. We have what they call faithless electors that can change their vote even if a presidential candidate wins their state. This is where our democracy gets a little muddy and a little dirty. And they've actually tried this in some states that don't have party registration, where you don't have to publicly declare your party, where you have to sign this pledge that says, I'm going to support this party's nominee. It's very fascinating. But Ron hit this right on the head. Ted Cruz is doing the right thing. He's looking 4 years for now for himself. He's saying, I want to be part of this. And the thing about unpledged delegates, this ability for them to change their vote, boy, that sounds a lot like superdelegates, doesn't it? This is about the party. And let's go back to what this is. This is a primary. This is a party choosing its nominee. So, yes, party members should have a larger say in this. The congressional district makeup, all these convoluted rules have caused this system to drag out and has often on our side, on the Democratic side, brought some ire towards us for superdelegates. But it keeps party officials in play and keeps their say. And that's sort of what he's going for here. It almost sounds like a Republican superdelegate.
Yeah, good point. All right, it's getting more and more interesting. Joe, Ron, thank you both as always for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
And for complete coverage of the 2016 election, go to foxnews.com. I'm Patty Ann Brown. Thanks for watching.